What would you think about the perspective of growing your established brand 10 times versus last year? And what about 30 times? This is the second part of our discussion with Nick Vinckier, the 29-year-old head of growth at Chaloop Group. In part one of the podcast, we talked about his exceptional journey. If you haven't had the opportunity to listen to it yet, the link is in the show notes. The second part is focused on his current business challenge, which is to turn around the performance of Faces.com. Faces is the largest luxury beauty retailer in the GCC. And it would be an understatement to say that Nick and his team have been successful with the challenge so far because they are currently growing more than 1000% versus last year. And they are just getting started. So, if you're looking to get insights into how to turn around an online brand and take it from 0 to 1, it's safe to say that you are at the right place.
Brought to you by Scopernia, this is the Future Club, the podcast that uncovers how leaders future-proof their businesses. Here's your host, Jeremy.
So now let's switch gears and focus on your current job and the current challenge that you have. So first of all, you are head of growth for Chaloop Group. For our listeners that don't know Chaloop Group is a massive luxury brand retailer here in the Middle East. It was founded in 1955. It's a family-owned business and have more than 12,000 employees. The first question that I would want to ask you is that we are now in this COVID-19 crisis that has been hitting us for the past months. How is Chaloop Group transforming and adjusting to this crisis?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because retail is in the middle of the storm, obviously. If you have a wide store network and all of a sudden, because of lockdowns, people cannot go out anymore, cannot go to the stores anymore, the focal point of your business becomes online. And luckily, our group started their digital transformation in 2017. And luckily, most of our brands were ready for online. A lot of businesses, a lot of franchises, joint ventures, own concepts of the group saw this as an opportunity to accelerate what they already started. But luckily, the foundation was there. The right people were in the bus, as they would call it. We got a bump in the road, but with the right people in the bus, it was good to steer this thing in through this crisis. And we're not there yet, obviously, as we're not through the crisis. But with the right people in the bus, you can overcome everything.
So you really see the crisis as an accelerator to that process, basically.
Yes.
And you as a head of growth, obviously you have also your part to play in boosting the online business. So what is your role concretely as head of growth?
It says what it says, head of growth. So I'm responsible to bring growth to the group, and that is very high level. But to make it very concrete, is I've been asked to focus on Faces.com to make that business grow and use that later on as a model for other businesses to grow. Mm-hmm. And that's the beautiful part of it is especially when you're part of a larger family business, is that high level and strategy is needed, but at the end of the day it needs to become concrete. So a very fluffy role as head of growth can be very fluffy, but in our context it became very concrete, and they said, focus on one thing, focus on Faces.com right now, make that one fly, and then we can start to look how to replicate that model for other businesses. And honestly, I like it like that. But the thing is, that's not scalable. So in the future, the challenge or the opportunity will lie in how can we make this highly unscalable model of going into a business unit and turning it around into build a model to scale that as well. How can we take that from
scale the scalable model?
That's very
that's basically it, right?
Indeed. How can we scale that model? How can we take 0 to 1 to 0 to 1?
And so you talked about Faces. Can you briefly tell us what is Faces as a brand?
So Faces is formerly known as Wuzhu, and we're basically, in a nutshell, the largest luxury beauty retailer in the GCC. We sell fragrance, makeup, and skincare products. We're 21 years in the market. We have 75 stores in 9 countries. and we're very well known in the Arabic part of the GCC. So perhaps a little bit less in the expat world. And that's a strength, but it's also a weakness, because that means for a younger demographic, Arabic and expat, we lost a little bit of connection. So very strong retail network, very widely spread throughout the GCC. But online a little bit less.
So in what situation was Faces before you arrived? Basically, we were tasked with a challenge to solve what type of problem?
Yeah, so I myself was tasked or asked to take the .com e-commerce from 0 to 1, but actually it was from -1 to 0 and then from 0 to 1. So there was a
website?
turnaround. Yeah, there was a website.
Okay.
So the Faces.com existed, but it was in a pretty bad shape. Very inefficient customer acquisition, or if you looked at the investment made to acquire a customer, it was almost the same as the base margin of the product. So a very unsustainable model to run the business. But it was also part in a larger transformation of Faces itself. So and that started, let's say, 1.5 years ago with the introduction of Salem Casey. Was asked to lead the turnaround of Faces. It was back in the day it was still Wu Zhu when he took over. He led a rebranding, a restructuring, the introduction of a new store concept, opening of new flagship stores. So a lot of foundational work was already done. And then the next phase of that transformation is then the online part.
So you got into the challenge that was pre-COVID-19, so
Yes.
before the crisis.
Yes, it was end October, beginning of November.
Okay,
Yeah.
beginning of November. So,
Peak
yeah.
season, yeah.
What did you do or put in place in your first 30 days in the job?
So yeah, obviously it's peak season. So November is the most important month besides Ramadan. So there wasn't a lot of time to properly plan everything.
Okay.
So there was a team in place.
How big was the team?
Around 6 people. So yeah, I really had to rely a lot on those people, obviously. So I tried to get the best out of them, listen a lot to what they would do. I generally believe in corporate organizations that everyone who is there is generally good in intention, but also in skill sets.
Mm-hmm.
If they're not performing, it's most of the times because they're demotivated one way or another, or they're miscasted for the role.
Mm.
So I believe that the people that were present, they were good, and I trusted that to be right. And if it wasn't right, yeah, there was no time to change the team anyway.
Yeah.
So I had to rely on them. It turned out great anyway. So a couple of people really rose to that occasion, listened to them, and we started working together very, very closely. Collaboration was something that didn't really happen before. So they worked very much in silos before. So you have category management who works on promotions, marketing who then will market those promotions. You have VM who's gonna put the products on the website and make sure that the banners are on the website, but don't give input to category management, which kind of promotions would work. So everyone was working on their own. And the first thing that we do, I still remember, I took over, brought everyone together, and it was the first time that they all sat together in one room.
Really?
And brainstorming on a campaign. It was the first time ever that we took a whiteboard and just said, hey, guys, we have the super sale coming up. What are we going to do? And they were like, oh, this is not how we're doing things over here. I said, that wasn't how you did it. From now on, this is how we're going to do it. And they gave ideas and said, last year we did this. Or do you remember the campaign that we did 2 years ago? Oh, yeah, perhaps we can do something like this. And luckily, the things that I do know, like digital marketing, I could easily spot the big mistakes that were made, turn down the big disasters, and reallocated some of that budget in effective channels. Yeah, and it started working. Bringing the team together, trusting the people, believing that they're generally good. And then, yeah, obviously stopping the fire. So walking into the place and seeing that everything is on fire, just looking where is the biggest fire here? Let me put out this one, and everything else we can work on that later on.
Can you give me an example of one of those specific fire or something that you stopped and then?
Well, yeah, as I said, so it's if you look at digital marketing, if you go into the specifics, you have social, paid social, and you have paid search, and those two reinforce each other. So if you think about paid social as a last click attribution channel where you put in money and you will get conversion out of that, then you will be dissatisfied or disappointed quite a lot. And one of the things was that Faces.com relied heavily on paid social without backing it up with paid search. And I generally believe in a model where you have a full funnel, top funnel, where you will build awareness. And that will convert either down the funnel then, but you need to guide the customer down the funnel on paid social. You need to retarget them through display networks. And then next to that, you also need to set up a strong search to collect all those people that you are warming up in the top of funnel. And you need to make sure that you invest properly in each step, meaning more or less in each step compared to the return you can expect from each step. So if you invest too much in the top of the funnel and not enough in the bottom of the funnel, it can never work. So if you then look at the total customer acquisition cost versus the revenue you make, it was horrible. And it was very clear to me when I looked into those numbers, and I don't want to call it data, it's just numbers. It was clear to me that nobody ever really looked at return on ad spend. And everyone was looking at conversion rates, and everyone was looking at add to cart rate and checkout abandonment. Yeah. But if you have a return on ad spend that is unsustainable, what are you even doing? And then in comparison with a margin structure that you have to play with as a multi-brand retailer, then you know that you can never be profitable. So if you have inefficient acquisition, then that's something you need to fix first. Or that was the fact with us, because we weren't a startup. We already had 100 brands, 4,000 SKUs on the website. So that was something that we had to stop. Throwing money out of the window, that had to stop immediately. While there was potential in acquisition, and that was the first thing that we started doing.
I'm guessing you tried a lot of different things. What did you try that failed and that you learned from?
There's every day we try stuff that works and doesn't work. One thing that I've really learned here on this job is that you get rewarded to be patient as well. So I love to do a lot of things. I love the strategy of massive action, where you can do 10 things, and then you can either start to strategize which you will do first, and you will measure the impact of thing 1, and then you will do number 2, and then number 5, and then number 4, because you made a plan. Or you can do all of those 10 things because you're convinced that all of those 10 will work. And if it doesn't, at least you're doing stuff and you get a head start for the ones that are still strategizing.
And maybe 1 or 2 things will work, or maybe 10, or maybe nothing, but you will know.
And the mistake then is that you don't know what is driving the growth. But the good thing is, you have growth. You have growth, and money comes in, and then you can start to isolate the winning factors from the losing factor. And that's a thing that then later on in the journey, I was like, okay, this massive action, I've been doing this a lot before. I need to turn it back down, and I need to be more scientific in my approach. Although I've obviously I set up experiments in the proper way, try to isolate what needs to be isolated, setting up control groups and so on and so forth. But still, the patience is very important.
But I think at the same time, if you're really in a position where you need a turnaround and you need to grow, and it's a need from your brand because you're losing money, it might be a good approach to say, you know what, first priority, let's bring some money into this business. So let's try 10 things, and then when we have some money and we buy ourselves a bit of peace, to start thinking and start strategizing, then you can start isolating, and maybe that's also a good way to...
Yes. As long as you then refocus, because you can't go
as long as you refocus.
Because you can't shoot at everything at the same time. Whenever I talk about it with colleagues in the growth industry, they are very much, and I admire them for that, about the scientific approach. And I still have to take a lot of steps in that. And in my personal development, I'm 29 years old, so I have still a lot to learn. So that would be one of those things. But then I what I say is my counter proposal to them is like, but try to do the massive action plan for once. Like every now and then, it won't hurt you. to do it the opposite way. Instead of trying one thing at a time and finding the winner and scale it, try 10 things and then remove what is not working.
Yeah.
But yeah, pros and cons.
And so obviously COVID-19 was a huge accelerator in that in the success that you are having today. So can you talk about that success?
Yes.
Do you have a couple of numbers that you can share with us?
Yes.
What is happening now?
Just for a bit of perspective, Faces.com was known in the market locally as a discounter. Although it's a luxury beauty retail platform online, it was known as a quite a heavy discounter. So what happens is you give discounts to people, they come, they love it, and then as soon as you drive down the discount, people don't come anymore, and they expect next time to have bigger discounts and and for yourself as well. So you give discount, people come, you feel amazing. Then as soon as you turn down a discount, people go away, you feel miserable. So the next thing you'll do, run discounts again. So that was a bit the vicious cycle. Then if you also take into account this unsustainable acquisition, you see a model that won't work. So
where you're losing more money than you're actually making.
Absolutely, where it's a burn model. And a very important thing to do was to make customers gradually aware that Faces was not that heavy discounter anymore.
So you stopped that.
We stopped that indeed, but we try to do it in a smarter way, where we say, okay, if you're a first-time shopper, great, you get 10% off. But that's the promise. First time, you get 10% off, and from there on, you'll pay full price. But people, they get something, they feel amazed. Oh, wow, I get this. I get to know it. I get to try it. And that's what I want to do. And next to that, we really wanted to... what we started doing was having a much more editorial tone of voice. So instead of promo, product, we really started building content on the website where we actually wanted to inform our customers. So one of the campaigns that we did was a skincare campaign. It was very much focused on educating the market on what type of product works for what type of skin, which type of routines you can follow. And it's quite unheard of here in the Middle East, because skincare products are still, it's not the biggest market. Everyone is very fragrance and makeup focused. So to come with something like that, it was totally new for Faces and for the audience. And then next to that is also the retention, because Faces had a very low repurchase rate. So setting that up, so stopping discounts, investing in a smarter acquisition model, setting up retention through just and you don't have to think about crazy things. What we've done is just stop working with an old CRM system that was very inflexible, and we just exported the database and imported in MailChimp. So that's literally.
So you're using MailChimp.
Yeah. So it's like this big box retailer. We just set up MailChimp to be more flexible and to send out emails. One of the things that we even did is just sending personal emails to the top 200 clients.
Wow.
From my own name. Like I just said, hey, my name is Nick. I just took over as head of ecom at Interim. And I just wanted to inform you about our latest product, or our latest the Black Friday campaign that we will launch. And I wanted to make sure that you were the first one to hear it from myself. And actually, like people, I made the mistake to share my phone number. I said, hey, if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me. Obviously, that backfired, because then people started calling me whenever they had any issue or whenever they had any question to buy lipstick. And it was, I just started out, and so I like yes, I want to buy this lipstick. I'm like, oh my god, I can't help you, and I feel so stupid because I'm supposed to know all of this. And I just explained, like, I just took over. Like, people understood.
But you were trapped in your...
I was trapped in my own thing. Yes. Because and you can see we did a lot of different things, but in the funnel it made sense. So we did a bit in the acquisition, a bit in the retention. In the activation part on the website, we optimized the checkout, because that was where the biggest problem was.
Too much clicks or not user-friendly?
Not user-friendly,
okay.
Especially mobile. That was not really. We didn't even A/B test. We just looked at the basics, so best practice. And there was a lot of UX sins that were happening. So really things you should never do. And we just threw that away. We worked on that. Set up a MailChimp and started sending qualitative emails.
How often?
My motto is to send every day.
Yeah, that's why I asked the question, because I know that's something that you always underline that is quite interesting, is that email marketing is probably the least or the most underused marketing tools that
I love email, really.
that are available today.
The team really needs to stop me, because I would send emails twice a day to people and they're like, stop it.
But there is spam. I mean, that cannot be a sustainable strategy. Why do you believe so?
I really believe in email, because you need to make that much qualitative content that you can bring value to your base twice a day. And that's the whole thing. So it forces us to be more creative, to come with better pictures, to better headlines, It forces us into value.
So you're using it, if I understand it correctly, as a management tool to motivate your team to produce extremely great content. Saying, imagine if you had to send 2 mails a day, what would you send?
Yeah, that's my dream. Luckily, there's a team also who can do this. But yeah, this is really something that I truly believe. So we built a model that started to work, and where the return on ad spend was almost double than it was when I took over, and where we started to see small growth. End of October, November, December, the thing was grow, take massive action, do whatever we need to do to bring money. And then in the first quarter, my plan was to build a growth machine where we know what works and what doesn't. But then all of a sudden, March 15th, the coronavirus started to happen. So luckily, the first 2.5 months, we were building everything, and we were taking away the things that don't work, starting to build more on that, started to scale different things. Setting up processes for more experimentation, setting up team structures, setting up processes to work together, and so on. So we were ready, and we were in preparation mode for Ramadan. So we were ready for this huge peak. We started to engage with our logistics team and the last mile partners to be ready for a huge peak in Ramadan. Mm-hmm. So it's like you build a sailboat. Mm-hmm. So we had the boat. We just in Q1 we were building the sail, and the sail was ready. And for Ramadan, we were going to blow a lot of wind in that sail artificially through throwing money into the buckets, into advertising, because we knew for every dollar we spend, we make X amount, because we know we have a fixed return on ad spend. Mm-hmm. So the only thing that we've been doing once Corona started is just, okay, it's there. We don't have to spend. So the wind was coming from an organic way, because everybody started shopping online, but we were ready. And then we just said, okay, let's throw all the money that we anticipated already in this funnel. And that combination of organic growth, because people started shopping online, together with the model that we set up, made us grow 1,000% versus last year.
1,000%.
And now we're on track to grow. On the yearly basis, we're going to do most probably 10 times more than last year in revenue.
Which is great news, I
which
guess.
Is amazing.
When you're head of growth and you're growing
Absolutely.
10 times.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And what is the most important next step that you guys have? Because now, I mean, you will be growing and everything is in place and the plan is there. And I'm not saying that all the work is done. I'm pretty sure there is a lot of work that is still. But what is the next step then for such a brand once you're there? But
the fun thing is that we're only getting started. So first it was fixing the biggest hole in the bucket so the water doesn't drop through it anymore. That was one. Number two was doing best practice, building a sail, and then having some wind in it. But what we're going to do right now, the next step is we're going to launch a new website with new technology supporting it. We're going to launch our app, and then the real fun starts. The real growth hacking can start. Because today, I'm not going to pretend that we're growth hacking. Honestly, we're sending valuable emails every day to people that should get those emails. We're not even hyper segmenting. We're not even hyper-personalizing the website for these people.
So you're working on the basics, basically.
We're doing the basics well now. We're setting up qualitative paid search ads. We're scaling campaigns that work. We're killing campaigns that are not working. We're doing the same in paid social. So we're just doing the basics well and trying to do the basics better every day. But once we're launching the new website and we will have access to an environment where we can do more rapid experimentation, then we will talk about growth hacking. And I hope that I can get invited to the podcast again to share.
That's
more
what I
of
was
that.
going to say. Maybe in 8 to 9 months you can come back and tell us about how it grew 30 times.
I hope so. That's the objective. Absolutely.
All right, we're going to wrap up this part with a few non-business related questions, just to finish it up on a high note.
Fun.
So we have in mind to start a music and book library from the people that we will talk to.
Mm-hmm.
So the first question that I had is, what is a musical artist that you feel deserves to be more popular than he or she currently is?
Okay, great. I don't know if it's like would be part of a business podcast, but I would say J. Cole. I don't know if you know
Great
J. Cole.
choice, of course.
I love J. Cole. He's a self-made man. I think he's super undervalued. His music is amazing. He produces most of it himself, publishes most of it himself. He sings, he raps, and also he's doing it across generations. So a middle child, you know the song hopefully.
Indeed, I do.
Where he explains that he worked with Nas, with Jay-Z, and now he's amongst the new generation. He still blows them out of the water, obviously. Yeah, undervalued. He should get more airtime.
All right, we will share all of the links and the things you talked about in the show notes, obviously. And what is the best book that you would recommend?
I've read a lot of great books. It's always hard to pin down. But if I need to say the book that changed my life was The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss, because that was the first time in my life that I thought, wow, there's everything that I knew, that I learned, was all of a sudden questioned. Like you don't have to compete in the rat race. You can do it differently. You can do it smartly. You can be more efficient. You don't have to play the game to win the game. You need to try to beat the game to win the game. And from there, it changed my life, honestly. From there on, I think it sparked something, or it changed something in my mindset. So the 4-Hour Workweek is one from let's say a personal point of view, and then everything Tim Ferriss. The 4-Hour Body changed my life in fitness.
Change your body. Also.
Change my body, but I started to do all of these experiments as well. I think the Tim Ferriss is probably the author that had the biggest impact in my life.
So in this podcast, what other business leaders do you think we should talk to? Who should be next?
Yeah, you shared this question before, and I have one person in mind that should totally be on the podcast. It's Mashal Wakar. She's an amazing human being, amazing entrepreneur. She's just amazing. I won't go too much into detail here. I want the audience to get to know her if they don't know her. Probably they do. But she's an amazing human being.
Cool. And I wanted to finish with a last question that would hopefully tell us a bit more about who you are as a person. So let's say we finish our discussion now, we wrap up, we step outside the building, the Shadow Group building, and you find a $10 million winning lottery ticket. What do you do with that money?
What would I do with $10 million? Well, I would probably would be very smart with. I would try to be very smart with the money, honestly. So I would split it into savings, split it into some investments, and then I would keep a little bit of fun money to start something my own, or to take a bet on something that I would want to start. Like play money. And then obviously the first thing that I would do is take my lovely spouse on a nice holiday first, because she deserves that. But then everything else, I would just resume my life as right now, because I love doing what I do. So $10 million in my bank account would really not change. I've been down that road before. I've been at both ways, where all of a sudden I had a lot of money coming in, so I had nothing. I had a lot of money coming in, and I lost myself, and I lost everything. I felt myself as being rich, and I felt myself being poor, and I felt miserable at both ways. So being in that, I know that money doesn't, it won't change who you are, or it shouldn't change who you are.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you for your time. It has been an absolute pleasure to have you and to have this discussion.
It's fun.
And hopefully we'll see you in a couple of months.
Hopefully.
Next steps.
Thank you for having me.
That was the end of our discussions with Nick Vinckier. We hope you appreciated listening to him and felt inspired by his experiences. We will come back very soon with a new guest, so don't hesitate to follow us on Spotify or to subscribe on Apple Podcast or YouTube to be notified when we make a new upload. This is the Future Club podcast brought to you by Scopernia. Thank you so much for listening.